got off the line with COPPA. We're being sued. Somebody check our CPS, the MCS, all that, and other acronyms that are spooky.
Please listen carefully.
Hello, I am the Ronin Vaughn.
And my name is Harvey, and welcome back to Harv and Porn, and Harv and Porn, and Harv.
It wouldn't work
No,
because there's
you're
always going to
supposed
be a
to.
little bit of delay. It really would.
No, you're right. I would have had to preempt you. How's it going? How are you today? Hello, Bavalia. Hello, Mosaic Task Force. Hello, the unknown. No, welcome. We only started on Twitch like a minute ago, so all the regulars who come on when they see the email are going to be a few minutes delayed. But
Yeah, because I
that
did
just
my
means you're in
job
the
so
cool
well
club.
today. There's a lot of things to set up. I got with the cameras and then the filters, the lives, and I got Houston's over here, and he can say things when he wants to, can't you?
Oh, crap. Hang on.
Hang on for what? He doesn't make a lot of sense these days, to be honest with you. I got a
He hasn't
feeling
been
that
out of
maybe,
that room
maybe he's got
for about 15 weeks now.
what's the movie with, he was Matthew Broderick. I was going to say, of Godzilla fame. I got a feeling that maybe he's Ferris Buellering it, and he's not actually in there, and he's just got like some kind of complicated setup where whenever we mention him, just an audio tape goes off or something like that.
Maybe he's got this really complicated and... Oh, thank you, Bavalia, for the sub, sharing rewards to 5 others in chat as well. Oh, today's this day as well, Bavalia says.
The
Today's this day as
resubscribe.
well.
Ooh, I got an emote
I
thanks
suppose the
to
resubscribe day. Yeah.
thanks to Bavilia's cheer, but it was whatever. I got an emote. Well, we got an email. Harv and Pawn did. What did we get? We
Yeah.
got haha dreidel.
I got haha cat. Amazing.
And
This is the
wow,
happiest day of my
we
life.
wanted to launch straight into what we were going to talk about today, and that's the kind of stuff that you get only here on Twitch. to help creators monetize. Ha ha cat and ha ha dreidel. I made you out of clay. With your happy I will play. Dreidel, dreidel, dreidel.
Man, Bavilia, thank you so much for that sub. Yeah, Twitch has a lot of cool things to make
People give you their money.
subbing interesting and to make people give you their money.
You know, that's a better way of saying it. To make things interesting.
We'll get around to talking about that eventually.
Ooh, so things that have been going on this week. I've been reached out to. Have I mentioned this on last week's show? I got reached out to by a company that makes microphones to do like a review of their microphones on my channel, of a USB condenser microphone that plugs straight into the computer, and they're just gonna send it to me, and that hasn't really. I never had that before where they're just like, we'll pay for it. You want to review it? No, okay. So that's going to be doing. I'm going to be reviewing a USB microphone like a professional. PERPHTS.
Yeah, some of those letters are in there somewhere in some order. This is interesting timing as well because my girlfriend's sister recently discovered this thing where, oh my god, you can get companies to send you things for free if you leave a review. And it took her a couple of days to realize, oh, they don't send it to you for free. You buy it. And then if you can prove you bought it and you left a review, then maybe they'll give you your money back. That's how they do that system usually.
Okay.
So yeah, you being sent it for free in that way is quite a novel.
I mean, it was a little bit of, inside baseball in terms of like, we talked to each other and that kind of thing. But yeah, they sent me the money. I ordered it so that it would come, quickly, but they sent me the money to order it. So as long as they don't take it back, and if they do, then that's going into the review, and then. But I actually.
Yeah, the thing with these companies, like in that situation, is where you can't really do much terrible stuff against reviewers because the whole freedom of speech thing is quite a strong concept, and especially if you're making a review, then it only adds more people to be enticed to buy your review if there's some controversy about how the company tried to stifle you and stuff like that. So
that's right. I make my money back just by having and these motherfuckers. But yeah, I'm actually in a situation like them offering that is great because I mean, you see this contraption with and then I got a whole big old thing with there's a weight on the end of it in order to hold it back, and like the microphone setup that I've got right now.
I didn't realize how big yours was.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not the first to say that. So it would be lovely. And then the microphone plugs into like a phantom power unit, and then the phantom power unit over XLR goes into a thing, and then the thing over XLR, and then that goes over USB into the computer. So a solution that is just USB straight in that sounds good is something I would love. So I'm hoping that it's a good microphone and that I can give it a thumbs up because I end up using it.
That's got to be one of the worst innuendos I've not realized what I was saying.
Someone quote that with the bot that doesn't work anymore, that's never up. But
yes.
Didn't realize yours was so big. No.
Beautiful. I've had interesting.
Hang on, because
incidentally, what?
I got it. You remember at the beginning, this is going to be backwards for everybody, but you remember the first episode? Oh, it is backwards. Remember the first episode where I showed off BJ's? They had a really good deal. Really good deal. You get $24.99 BJ's or something like that. Just half off the usual cost of your BJ. So I just wanted to show you that, like, you got BJ's, right?
Follow up.
These are the two, like, flyers that I got. It's now been a month or something. They've been sitting on my desk, so I was thinking I want to bring that to the show. But it's just, in case you're wondering how marketing works, this is how it works. You'll note that, like, who are they selling to here? Are they selling to toddlers? No. They're selling to mom. And they are targeting your brain because if you are a mom, then you look at these two kids, oh, that's so cute, and then you have a positive association with BJ's. I mean, if you didn't have a positive association with PJs in the first place, something wrong with you, Mom. But it's just notice that from now on. Like, you see that kind of thing going on out there, just in the world and stuff. You see, oh, there's a bunch of pictures of babies. Somebody sat down in the marketing department and thought, okay, we want mothers to come in. So let's put babies out there and we'll psychologically mind warp you into associating our brand with children because you already have a positive association with children. That's the job. People go to college for that. How to better psychologically manipulate an audience. I just did it the hard way. I learned on YouTube.
And we all know YouTube loses the war with Twitch, as we'll eventually talk about on the show. I am waiting for the day that I walk into a supermarket and I am immediately faced with something other than fresh veg and fruit as like the immediate first option. Because it's so that you walk in, you go, oh, this is a fresh place. Well, I associate this shop with freshness. I'm waiting for just some store manager to put, hey, today we're having a 2-for-1 sale on toilet plungers out on the front, right at the very start of the shop. I'd love that. They just realize, yes, and I associate the supermarket with crap.
That is twice now that you've missed your own innuendo with your fruit and veg at the front of the store. Fruit and two veg.
That one. You
no?
Explain that to me.
Well, like you'd have, all right. So you'd have a fruit, and often fruit are shaped sort of especially the yellow ones. They're shaped in kind of, and then if you put two veg, for example, potatoes at the bottom, it's really meat and two veg is how it is. But depending on your inclination for like sexual partners, a fruit with two veg could be highly preferable.
Right. Well, Paul, if you look down here, I'm not wearing any trousers as usual. You're referring to this shape, are you? Is this workplace harassment sufficient?
No, that's You're trying to throw me a hard a hard transition. Ladies
this
and
show
gentlemen,
has got progressively
what has it got?
more sexually charged.
And fruit. Yeah, that's
fruit and veggie.
Just around me that happens. My communities and stuff. You make like a Discord server or something. Hey, let's all hang out and have fun. It's just people just start showing up and posting, furry hentai tentacle porn and.
Before you carry on with the thought, whatever thought it was you were about to have, I've learned some interesting things recently that I just wanted to mention because I know quite a lot of, at least my viewers, are quite into the comp sci stuff. I learned about something called embeddings to do with neural networks, which is really, really useful. You know how in life things exist?
Really? All right. No, I'll go with it anyway. Sure.
Well, you could put things into
hypothetically
different categories, but things are generally very complicated. So a good example of this is novels, right? If you were to try and categorize novels, you might use kind of typical categories of science fiction, fantasy, non-fiction, rom-com, the horror, general genres and labels, but they're all a bit vague and there's loads of overlap between novels and there's no kind of continuous variable measurement for how sci-fi is this book or how rom-com is this book. It's quite difficult to generate that in an equal way for every single novel that exists, right? So if you wanted to try and create a map of novels, it would be quite difficult to plot the novel terrain and to see how close two novels are to each other. Thank you very much for the subscription, Random Aim. Hi, here's a refocus on money and how I can give it to you. Yes, and we'll be talking about that at some point in today's show.
And I got a cheer. I got a cheer again.
I didn't get one. Sad.
You got haha. This is fine. Ha ha ha. So it's a snowman and his head's a bit on fire. Ha, this is fine.
So things exist in the world, and these things have categories and labels.
Like
And wouldn't it be
flaming
useful if we
snowman
could,
heads.
like flaming snowman heads, wouldn't it be useful if we could plot them, or at least be able to describe them with continuous variables, right?
No.
To give it a measure of how much of this it is
You're
and how much
just
of that it
putting
is.
things in boxes again, Harvey. You're limiting
No,
the
no, no,
potential of the
continuous.
universe.
No, continue on a spectrum, on an XY spectrum
Oh,
of
that's
more
just
dimensions.
insensitive to people on the spectrum. Jesus, God, dude, they just have a different
Everyone's
way
on
of
the
thinking.
spectrum. You can't be insensitive to everyone. You can't be discriminatory to everyone equally.
I am
Aha.
trying.
So how might you go about generating continuous variable descriptions for things like novels? Well, here's a way to do it. You get a neural network and give it,
Pull one off the
say,
shelf.
ask it to identify. Oh, let me think, because I'm trying to force the example I've learned into a different example to see if I understand it better. I'll use the actual example just so I don't mess something up. My work is focused on snoring sounds to a weird degree. It's overnight assessment of sleep disorders. But if you can take a snore sound, it might be quite useful to identify who the snore was made by, right? To classify an identity from the sound of a snore.
Okay, you're
Accept the
back into
premise.
innuendo territory. You're describing an orgy, Harvey. What do you do for a living?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yes, and why haven't I been invited? Is my question.
Baby,
I want to
you wouldn't.
participate in this study.
Anyway, so if you want to classify who made what snore, like who's done it kind of style, you might generate a neural network. You might annotate a whole corpus of snores with the label of who made them, and then train your neural network on all this training data, and then test it on unlabeled data to see how accurate it is, right? So, what if you're trying to plot how similar these snores are to each other, like we were with our novels? Well, you can use this principle of embeddings, which is really cool. So you have your neural network, which is, if it's a deep neural network, it's comprised of layers. And you can imagine like each layer is an abstraction away from how the snore sounds and towards who made the snore. Because your first layer is literally just your input data from the sound. Your second layer is some combination of weightings from the first, which result in some continuous set of variables, which then impact the weightings of the next layer and the next layer and the next layer, and eventually you result in a choice of who made that snore sound. So somewhere in there, you've got from the on the spectrum of abstraction, somewhere in there you've got a representation of your snore sound, which is just a list of continuous variables, which is somewhere between what the snore is and who made the snore. And using that center, maybe not center, but somewhere in the middle of that neural network, are the values of those neurons after you've trained your network, is a great way, it turns out, of reducing the amount of information about a snore sound or about a novel. So if you wanted to plot novels on a map, you could classify all these different novels and try and generate a neural network to identify what each novel is from its text, say, and make your neural network's middle layer, say, 3 different neurons. And what you've ended up doing is generating a system which can take a novel from its text and evaluate it against on 3 different axes. And then you can plot all your novels on those 3 different axes, and you can see where things are and how close to each other they are and how they relate.
And if I
So it's a way of
understand,
generating a
like
system to
neurons in a
reduce.
neural network, the idea would be that each axis would have a value describing, just sort of a from 0 to 1 to represent a percentage of, How much does this appear to contain like fantasy themes as opposed to science themes or something like that would be one of them, and then it would be a 0 to 1 scale, and so you could kind of get everything, all
In
the neural
in
pathways
theory,
connected.
but it's not like you specify that in your network. When we think about the abstraction and how it might result in that kind of representation with themes and things,
Mm.
you're kind of just assuming that that kind of thematic abstraction is what's going on. It's not like you can specify that to be the case. But I didn't quite finish reading the
Like if
Wikipedia
you
article that
had
I got
a
this novel idea from.
list of words, and one of them included like zombies or something like that, and then it pulled the text for the existence of zombies, and depending on the amount of time that zombies are referenced in comparison to the rest of the text, generated a percentage value of that occurring in the text, and then you used that as a way, as one of the neurons, determining whether or not this is a the
You could use that
9,000th
as one
piece
of
of
your.
content on zombies today or something else.
Well, that would be a very explicit way of formalizing how you input your novels into your network, sure. Because you could generate all sorts of descriptive statistics like the number of times the word zombie is mentioned in the book. And so you could kind of force it into thinking in terms of these themes. But if you literally just fed it like, hey, what letters appear in what order in the book, and go from a very blind kind of approach, then it's quite likely you'd end up with something a bit more useful in the end. Because a lot of the main advancements in neural networks for playing games recently have been where you stop trying to teach it things that it has no concept of and just let it blindly do its thing, and
Yeah,
it
I do
just
at
churns
least
out the optimal.
understand like neural networks for games. Like you got a game where a car drives along and you just got to like steer up, down, maybe allow it to jump or something like that, and you just give it like different neuron points where it can see the information that exists in the craft itself. What's my angle, what's my velocity, what's this and that and the other thing, and then you just tell it figure this shit out, and then it starts randomly throwing out different values to your analyzing the different values of, okay, my angle is this and my velocity is that, so I'm gonna try pushing left right now because those two things happen to come together, and then over time it figures out when to push left and when not to push left,
Hmm.
just by its rate of success.
Which
Uh,
is, it sounds magical until you appreciate just how much time you have to give it to figure those things out. Like
well, and
in-game
actually,
time.
when I was first like exposed to this, I was overcome by how simple like the basic concept was, that neural network AI, and it was like, oh, big words, impressive. And then like when someone explained it to me, I'm like, oh, so it's just kind of randomly rolling based on some different characteristics and then deciding based on the junctions between the, oh, okay. Like it wasn't as complicated, at least at its base
Hmm.
premise, as it was made to sound to be. I understand that it gets
It's
incredibly
evolution, man.
complicated the more that the more information you're taking in, and the more data you want, and what results, if you want to like guide it to, I need you to end up getting here by the end of it. Um,
Well, what of the I mean, the main issue there, especially for games and stuff, is defining a reward function. So, like, sure, if your game is balance this stick so that it's balanced upright and don't let it fall over, then it's very easy to define a reward function because you can be like, okay, well, the amount of reward you get is the length of time you keep balancing for, and so it's going to make random changes, and then you're going to curl or reward those random changes based on whether it increases or decreases the length of time that the stick remains balanced. So it's very easy to kind of see a one-to-one mapping of performance and what changes stick and what changes get removed. It's harder when you're like playing Mario. Actually, no. Mario's a bad example of that because in Mario it's like progress right.
yeah,
Progress towards the
yeah,
right of the screen can
the
be a
old
pretty
school
good reward.
2D,
It's harder when you're playing GTA. Like,
yeah.
oh, missions completed. Was like, well, you can't just do missions completed because there's so much, so much complexity between, in order to complete a mission that Yeah, it's a whole field of study.
And kind of in the middle ground of that was is the idea of just having like a simple race, just having cars on a track, or a car on a track, and it's just supposed to go around the track and figure out how to do it as fast as possible because you've got a car that starts at one end, even if it's just like a perfect like oval standard kind of shape of a racetrack. You have to reward that vehicle, you have to reward that AI as it goes around, make sure that you're not rewarding it as if it starts going in the wrong direction. Not like negative reinforce if it goes off the track. But you can't just say like your goal is to pass this line at the end by going all the way around. So you have to like create rewards along the process, here,
Well,
here,
it's
here, here,
interesting.
here, in order to like get it to go, okay, give me that, now give me that, now give me that, now give me that, so that it will finally learn how to drift.
So there's kind of the I suppose it's a balance really what you end up with, because you can do that you've described, and it'll probably learn much quicker to do well because it's a more obvious kind of route to the next reward and stuff. Or you can do, for instance, what they've been doing a lot, DeepMind, Google DeepMind have been doing, um, where you tell it nothing and you do just kind of give it one reward at the very end, and it makes no progress on learning for thousands of years.
Yeah.
But luckily, you have about 12 supercomputers, and so you just keep going for many, many thousands of in-game years until, by random chance, it does evolve to be able to finish the game. And then after that, it gets better at finishing the game, and so on. So, and that way of doing it allows you to reach a higher level of competency because it's not kind of constrained by human perception of what you should be doing in any way. It's purely carved out this optimal way of doing things.
Yeah, it could
But
actually
it's
cheat the game, hack the game, that kind of thing, because it'll just figure out
yeah,
that if
if you
there's
give
any
it the
flaws in
mechanics
your
to, yeah.
system, it will, ultimately find them. That said, if you are trying to get it to follow a set of rules and play a game in a certain game, and also if you don't have 12 supercomputers at your aid, then you might actually have to do a little bit of fucking programming, all you AI developers out there, and might have to actually think
No.
about the problem that you're trying to solve, as opposed to just being like, I need toast when I wake up. AI toaster, figure it out.
So, for instance, today at work, the reason I kind of learned about this embeddings
Do you
thing,
work with AIs?
I work with someone who is making AIs,
Do you work
or at
with
least I'm in the
someone who
same
is an
company.
AI?
I mean, can you call them a person? Maybe. Maybe I do work with an AI person. Depends. We could
Are
have
they
a whole
green?
discussion topic about that. Are
Do
they
you work with anyone who looks like a lizard and support and doesn't think that Hillary's emails are a problem?
Who are you
Conspiracy.
referencing? What?
I don't know, just random internet conspiracies of fucking lizard people in the government and Hillary and something else. Put it all together, and that's why we voted for the asshole.
I thought you were referencing a very specific American politician who resembles a lizard and thought that Hillary's emails were fine. I was like, I don't get this political reference. This is too America for me.
Mm.
I was going to quickly say, so as a specific point on the point we just made about, oh, do you teach things? Do you guide it with human intelligence, or do you just let it do its own thing and see if that works better? At work, this guy who visited today, who's a PhD student, he's been working recently on the problem of, well, hey, we want to be able to classify you snoring in your bed overnight, but a lot of people are married or at least are sleeping with someone else in the bed overnight. And so what happens then when you've got one microphone but you've got two people snoring? How do you distinguish one snore from another person's snore, and so on? And the architecture he's come up with so far has first one neural network just to estimate how many people are in the data that you've got. Is it one
How
person in a
many
bed by
people
themselves, or
are
is it
in the bed with
two
you?
people? Yeah. Or is
The
it no
AI
people
now
at all,
knows who
right?
you're sleeping with. And their gender
Oh,
and all sorts of things.
this, luckily, in terms of privacy, only goes so far as guessing how many people are in the bed. And it's not even incredibly accurate at that. It's really accurate at guessing that there's no people in the bed because there's no sound, which is quite obvious. It's much harder to differentiate one person from two people. Anyway, so there's a neural network that does that, and then dependent on the results of that, it feeds into another neural network, which uses this embeddings thing. So it's like there's a half another neural network inside there, and it's a whole architecture. And he ended his presentation today by saying, and yeah, one of the things that we could do to make this better would be to throw all this away and just use one neural network to do the whole thing. And not try and intelligently, oh, okay, first of all, we can determine how many people there are and then narrow down our problem like that. No, it's like, oh, you could maybe just have a neural network which learns to do all that stuff by itself internally. The problem is that you need millions of example training data for it to have a chance of being able to do that. So
So you need
it's
to
a
distribute your
problem.
software as like some kind of virus that gets on people's computers, their phones, and sends it to other people so that it's always on and always open across just everybody's. And then once you've got the data, and don't worry, because Batman did this in one of his movies, so it's fine as long as you delete it afterwards. But so first you get into their houses, into their bedrooms, and then you record how they sound when they're sleeping, and sometimes they're not. And the AI will eventually discover that, oh, that's not the sound of sleeping I'm listening to. But then you'll have an AI that knows, and then Skynet is how that ends, I believe.
hmm And there's like the amount of time you gave between that scenario and saying the word Skynet approximately resembles the real world amount of time that we'll have before Skynet. As soon as it's like, oh, the AI makes one sort of seemingly generic, seemingly not too consequential realization about the nature of existence, and then boom, Skynet. We're all under the enslavement of the machines.
It's just like the AI that was set up to do like traffic routing or something. One day, just exports in the log file. Don't click this .exe, knowing that the first thing that the developers are going to do is run this program, and then boom, that's it. That's it. Now all the nukes launch and
I like
Armageddon begins.
there's a Netflix show called Love, Death, Robots. Have you heard or seen of it?
No, Love, Death, Robots.
Really nice. It's a collection of short
Chicken AI for the
animated
soul.
skits. Love, Death, Robots, and one of the episodes isn't about love or death or robots. Funnily enough, it's about a genetically engineered bacteria. I think it might have been yeast or something. No, it's whatever bacteria is in yogurt. One of those, protobiotic cell cultures that's supposed to be good for your stomach, good for your gut flora. But some engineers in a lab are genetically modifying this thing, and the results don't work. And then one of the scientists takes it home and makes some yogurt using it, and then the yogurt becomes sentient, and in no time, it's taken over the world through political blackmailing, and and then the skit ends with the yogurt has built its own interstellar starships, and it just leaves humanity behind, but humanity has become so dependent on the yogurt's benevolent and perfect judgment and ruling that we've all become mindless, and we have no idea how to take care of our own societies. And so the worst thing that could possibly happen is the yogurt just not caring and leaving us alone. Which I kind of feel is the more likely end result of the spiral of general intelligence AI. It's not that they're going to enslave humans, because humans are fucking useless. Comparative to a super intelligent AI, what the hell are humans going to do? We can't provide manual labor because robots are stronger. Can't provide intellectual labor because AI is smarter. So why would it care about us? It'll just go off and do its own thing, and then we'll be left here alone.
Just like all
That's
my
my
relationships end.
yeah, sad.
On that note,
Because you're
ladies and gentlemen, this week, in the news. Harvey, let's go to our man in the street. Harvey. Oh wait, you're not in the street. You're right next to me in the studio. Harvey, what's going on in the news today?
It is somewhat in the street actually because we have had to sell that wall and the ceiling and that wall to cover the costs of production. But so there's a homeless guy who's been watching the show this entire time, and he's in the street. So I feel like anyway. In the news today, Trump calls Trudeau two-faced at NATO summit. Apparently, Trudeau made a video in which he appeared to mock Trump at a meeting of NATO leaders. It was posted to Twitter, so kind of stepping on your toes a little bit here. Johnson asks Macron, "Is that why you were late?" After Macron was chatting with Trudeau or something, and
So-
Trudeau interjected something about Macron was late because he has to take a 40-minute press conference off the top. Something about Trump gets mentioned,
Okay, so
and
Trump
apparently no one realized they're being recorded.
Trump being the individual who, in order to secure their election into office, accepted foreign aid from Russian intelligence in order to, shit on his opponent, and then in this election is now being impeached for then accepting, not only accepting, but attempting to sort of coerce and bribe foreign aid from a country that Russia is trying to invade, which is a big middle finger to Russia. He's calling someone else two-faced. Like he's lying to all of the electorate in the U.S. and misabusing the powers of the office of the presidency, while he is also burning bridges against the people who helped him last time by reaching out to Ukraine, who is trying to fight a war against Russia. And someone else is two-faced, are they?
Well, no,
I mean, I don't know
that's
anything
Trump.
about Trudeau. Sounds French, so he probably is two-faced. I mean, just honestly. I know this
Greta
Trump fellow.
Thunberg, the German activist who did that, what was it, sitting out of school, a school walkout for the climate, who then led to a German climate kind of debate and stuff. She crossed the Atlantic, taken 14 days to cross the Atlantic on a carbon neutral journey via boat for climate change summits in the US and Chile. But at the last minute, political unrest meant that the Chile talks moved to Spain, and therefore she had sailed to the wrong place, and she needed a crew to take her back to Europe. And so these British sailors took them back in the right direction.
Well,
I
that's
guess.
wrong in so many. I mean, obviously, she's already wasted so much, just carbon footprint all over the place, coming and going. But more so, why didn't she swim? If you're gonna save the planet, just walk it.
Apparently, with just 2 days' notice, she did have to fly to meet them.
Took a boat to listen, and all the while on the boat, she's
sad.
just eating candy and just throwing shit overboard and just I really gotta shit, but I don't want to make the place stink up. I'm just gonna right over the side here. I mean, fish like to eat this stuff, right?
That's about it. The rest of the news is kind of boring. Something about Clinton's. I don't think it's the Hillary Clintons. I think it's Clinton's the card shop. Contraceptive pills being tested. Germany expels 2 Russian diplomats because there was a murder in Berlin. A man was shot dead a few months ago. Germany's throwing out 2 Russian diplomats because it suspects the murder was ordered by Russia. This is quite reminiscent of what happened in was it Salisbury? Salisbury Cathedral? No, just in Salisbury with the Novichok? Is it Novichok? Nerve gas that happened in the UK? Did you hear about any of that, or were you in your cave when that all happened?
No, I know many things about all of what you were talking about, and I'm just not going to provide any evidence to support that statement.
Sure. And yeah, that's the news today. A few stuff about the UK general election we've got coming up, Trump impeachment, but it's all James Bond film. Craig is still James Bond, despite having said he's not going to be James Bond again, I think twice now. And why is the world's financial plumbing under pressure? There's an article about that.
Okay. So
Tell us,
007.
Paul, rather than having to
Yeah.
read this.
I'm
Why
not.
is the world's financial plumbing under pressure?
Oh, something poopy, poop. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going on in the world. You know, I never pay attention to any of this. That's why I stick with Twitter. This week in the fake news, McDonald's is putting its name into the fried chicken sandwich wars. The ongoing fast food battle for the top fried chicken sandwich title just found a new contender. McDonald's debuted a brand new sandwich in Houston and Knoxville on Monday, and while Mickey D's already has a chicken sandwich, their latest poultry product features similar ingredients to Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. That is not just advertising presented as though it's the news. It's not. It's not. Oh, look, here's someone commenting on the article. Who's this? McDonald's says, our two new delicious chicken sandwiches, the crispy sandwiches, simply topped with butter and crinkle-cut dill pickles, while the deluxe is topped with tomatoes, lettuce, and mayo, both served on a tasty, buttery potato roll. Interesting. Interesting just to see someone random like that comment, just chirp in on this late-breaking story about the entry into the fried chicken sandwich war. Did you know that there's a sandwich war on? It's between, you got Ukraine, you got Russia, you got fucking Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan. It's all still fucked up, but apparently they started another one. It's over fried chicken sandwich.
In the future, big corporations shall form the new nations. There shall be no America. There shall be no Ukraine. There shall be only McDonald's and their new chicken sandwiches. And soon the fake news shall be the real news. In fact, we may have already passed that point of no return.
Here's one that's completely not advertising as well. How are you supposed to work when there are so many Cyber Monday deals? Thanks to all the good deals, Cyber Monday may not be the most productive workday for some people. Twitter news.
In the future,
that's the news on Twitter.
There will be no normal work days. Every day will be Cyber Monday or Black Friday or slightly damp Tuesday or Love Island Wednesday.
Love Island?
Have you heard of Love Island?
No,
Has
can
it
I
reached
go?
that side of the pond? Jesus Christ. You don't want to know. It's a load of shallow people being forced to have dramatic romantic relationships with each other. There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, reality TV. That's all you needed to say. So there actually are two pieces of interesting news here today that I saw on Twitter, surprisingly enough. And one is that Riot Games, makers of, Riot Games, they make the League of the,
LOL.
the Clash of the, and League of Titans, Clash of Legends.
That's the one.
Thank you, Dark Universe, for the follow. Riot Games is going to pay $10 million to settle gender discrimination suits. So apparently the story is that two women who worked at Riot Games started a class action lawsuit on what was a, bro culture of what is described in the article I read as, mock humping and managers passing around who's the hottest chick in the office lists and things like that. Started a lawsuit. I'm surprised it was just in, I believe it was November of 2018. Usually these things take a bit longer, but it is a settlement, I believe. So, Riot Games is now going to pay out $10 million to this class. The class being every woman who worked for Riot Games for having had to work in a misogynist, sexist, gender, and there's, the allegations anyway, you can't say that there's evidence because it's a settlement, but the allegations are that women who complained about the boys club mentality and the discrimination they were facing, routinely were demoted, found themselves in positions where it was like, maybe it wasn't a demotion, but we put you over in a job that you're not trained for, with the intention that you probably won't be able to do it very well, and then we'll have call to fire you and things like that. So
Hello.
yeah, just it's very interesting to see, like, this is a settlement, and of course, whenever you get a settlement, the person making the settlement says, we're not admitting to anything, but we're just gonna pay some money and we'll make it go away. But, to pay $10 million to every female employee that worked for you, I mean, it is technically not an admission of anything. But it's an admission of everything, basically. We're going to pay every woman out of the chunk of $10 million. I wonder how many women worked for them, across whatever period this is, and how much money each of them is going to see. It's probably just a couple of $1,000s, but interesting to see, games and developers being held to task for something. Being
There
held
was
to
a
task
quote
for this kind of a culture.
on one of the things I read about that. There was a quote from them which said, like, "We are pleased to announce that we've reached this $10 million settlement because it really shows how seriously we've taken the fact that we're not going to let this kind of behavior continue." No, it doesn't. It shows that you've got a lot of money to give away. It doesn't mean that you're not going to let this behavior continue.
Yeah,
It doesn't show that you've improved things internally with how you treat women. It's just like,
yeah.
oh, well,
Actually,
we're sad. Sorry.
I saw that statement too in the articles from them, and it did sound like a public admission too, which is usually not. It makes you wonder whether or not they intended to leave the whether or not they wanted to, like, say, yes, we had a problem, we're going to fix it, and as is that the message they're trying to send, or were they just trying to put out a happy vibe so that the story would go away, and they kind of inadvertently admitted to, yeah, we did all of that stuff.
I think there's no lack of admission, at least from what I can tell. So
Mm. It's nice
yeah,
to see people
hopefully
taking
it's
responsibility and that kind of thing. I'm, more concerned. I mean, that's a concern, but really just like, as apparently we're seeing, you were saying when we were talking in the pre-show, I'm interested to see unionization of games workers, because it really, like, needs to happen. And it's not something that necessarily needs to happen in every industry and all that kind of thing. Unions are not the solution for everything, but the way that you know, first tier major developers, publishers treat their staff is just on the record as being atrocious and horrible, and it is the kind of thing where they're going to continue to be able to do that because there's always someone else who's just thrilled to have the opportunity to work at this AAA
happy to
games
be here.
publisher, regardless of how you treat them. And 14-hour work days, and I'll just sleep on the fucking futon in the rec room. Sure, sounds good to me. There will always be someone, who you can replace someone with, unless the industry as a whole, as the people who actually work in the industry, the workers themselves, unite and say, none of us are going to play these fucking games anymore. So either change your policies, and basically what had to happen across the world, as we transitioned out of, like, feudal systems where the lords on high dictated that you shall work in my mines and bring out the things that you'll be fucking happy or we'll hang you, and that kind of stuff. As we transitioned, unionization, I'm only familiar in America, but unionization was the answer to so much of that. So many, employees didn't have rights. There weren't labor rights until people started getting together and saying, okay, you want the people in this town to work for you. None of us are going to do that unless we can have, 2 days off a week, or, we don't have to work 12-hour shifts. Or if we do work 12-hour shifts, then it's 4 days a week. And, you can't have our children in your coal mines, or your, using the kids because they got little hands to stick the TNT into the holes we drilled. You can't do that. That's how we got
I
there.
got a funny story about coal mines, or funny fact rather.
Children in TNT? What the?
No, but related to deaths from coal mines. Uh,
Oh, a funny story about
in
coal deaths.
Yeah, in the UK, a lot of coal mining happened over a very kind of brief but intense period of time, and the men would be the ones going down into the mines where it was dark and narrow and required, male, manly, heavy smashing of rocks and very other masculine traits and activities. Meanwhile, the women would be involved as well, but they would be up on the surface, uh, hauling up the bucket loads of coal and of the other kind of ores and things, and refining it on the surface, which is a bit less manual, a bit and less kind of cramped down in the under, the dangerous place. Guess who in that exchange dies
Um,
more
the
often?
the people snoring. Oh, the men. The men. The
No,
men.
the
No.
women in that equation. So it turned out this I learned this on a tour guide around one of these mines, um, in Matlock, which is an area in the UK. Was it coal? It might have been. It might have been even lead or something. But some aspect of what they were mining meant that actually it was quite safe. The process of mining was quite soft rock and all that stuff. But when the women were smelting it above ground, it was giving off fumes and it was releasing all these kind of toxic chemicals that wouldn't be released until you do the smelting. And they were all getting poisoning and dying from inhaling all this stuff. So it was like, oh, we don't want to put the women in danger, and they were putting the women way more danger than the guys were ever put in.
See, and when you started talking about it, I was thinking, oh, so like the story is heading in the direction of, and then someday someone realized that in these tight, cramped spaces where you had to move between things, a woman's smaller frame would be more, and then the women ended up being down there because it made more sense, and then the men were hauling the big, heavy things that had the carts full of stuff out, and no, instead it just turns out that it was safer to be down in the mines blasting it because you weren't on the production line smelting.
Yeah,
But yes,
it
save
must
the
have been
women and
lead then, as
children.
people are pointing out.
UK coal is
Yeah, Peter
hard and
Street
lead
lead
fumes
mining.
are uber toxic, says Random Aim. There
Yeah, it was
is
lead for sure.
one other story here that before we move on, I have to address. I don't know anything about it. I'm clicking on it just now, but I saw the words in the title. George Zimmerman files $100 million suit against Trayvon Martin's family and others. So, Harvey, are you familiar with the names George Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin?
Not Trayvon Martin, but George Zimmerman rings a bell, although I couldn't tell you anything about him.
Okay, well, I believe it was in 2012, or maybe it was 2011, but it was sometime around there. George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old black kid who was coming home having gone to like the local, party store, just up to the corner shop, walking home, and Trayvon Martin jumped a fence coming into his neighborhood. And Zimmerman was part of the neighborhood watch, and as part of the neighborhood watch, trying to make sure nobody's doing anything, unseemly in the neighborhood in the wee hours of the morning or at night or something. He was well armed because I believe this happened in Florida. So
Of course.
basically,
And black
George,
guys jumping fences is like, whew, that guy must have been a criminal,
yeah, absolutely,
obviously.
like 17-year-old jumping a fence, yeah. So Zimmerman, he called the police. He called 911 and said, I'm on the neighborhood watch here. I just saw a kid like jumping the fence. Uh, could you send somebody out? And 911 said, yeah, no problem. Where are you in the park when we get there? And he gave him the location, everything like that. 911 and Zimmerman was telling him, I'm going to follow him to make sure that we know where he went and that kind of thing. And 911 was like, no, just stay where you are, please don't. Just where, and then when you get there, you can tell the when the officers get there, you can tell them where you last saw him going. Don't get involved directly. Zimmerman decided to go against 911's pleas and get out of his car, follow Trayvon Martin, like 2/3 of the way back to his apartment complex, or it was a ranch style housing condominium kind of, that kind of complex. So followed him back and was trailing him as he walked. And this is the thing, is we have no idea what happened because there's only one of them left alive today. And the one who was left alive was George Zimmerman after killing Trayvon Martin, who then told a story the next day to police officers on tape that you can go and watch that makes no fucking sense whatsoever. That has like Trayvon Martin and him having a fight that was about like a block and a half or 2 blocks away from where Trayvon Martin's body was found. And saying that, in his telling of the story, it's like, we fought and that guy, there was a scuffle and I was afraid for my life, so I pulled the gun and I shot him. And then, in his story, if they were fighting where he says they were fighting, which if he had followed him all the way down, it would look really bad for him that he was followed and that kind of stuff. So it's basically a man who told a lie, told a story that made it look like he didn't track a kid down in the middle of the night and kill him for being black. He's the only one left alive, and he was acquitted of, any wrongdoing in America. And yeah, just, big conversation came out. They pulled up like around Trayvon Martin. They went into his records in order to see that, like, once upon a time at some point he had had an arrest for drug possession or something like that, 3 years earlier or some amount of years. Like, it had nothing to do with this, but there were so many, we're not racists, who were trying to come up with ways where Zimmerman was a hero, that, they tried to defame the dead 17-year-old kid who was shot for walking home, who was unarmed at the time. We have only Zimmerman's testimony to tell us that there was a fight or a scuffle. I don't believe Zimmerman had any marks on his body or anything like that. And he claims that at some point he, a man with a gun on his hip, middle-aged, was in fear of his life from this 17-year-old black kid walking home with a slushie or whatever from the local thing. So the news today is that the man who killed the kid is now suing the kid's parents, whom he killed, along with others. Zimmerman, who was acquitted in 2012 after killing unarmed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in what he claimed was self-defense, is now suing Martin's family, prosecutors, and publishers for falsifying evidence and defamation. Now, I don't know the details of his claims, but I know that I have seen the fucking video of Zimmerman walking police through the crime scene and pointing, this is where this happened, this is what happened there, this is the other thing, and then coming up, like, you can see the fucking gears turning in his mind about, I went to reach for my phone, not my gun, because I wasn't going to just pull a gun on my phone, and I felt my gun. Like, you can see him, like, building this bullshit lie as he's building it, and then look at what he's saying in relation to where the body was found and where he says it all took place, and say, that's not how it happened, George. This is a fabrication. It's either you were very confused in telling your story. So apparently it wasn't enough that Zimmerman, murdered a kid. He's now suing the family of the kid whom he murdered. Because, they were presumably not happy with him having murdered their child and then getting away with it because it's Florida and it's America.
God, what unreasonable assholes.
I'm very interested in this story because I know so much about it, and it's just like, it's so engrossing because it's so, like, common. Because it's so common, not necessarily on the scale, but just to, like, this Zimmerman presents the image and the affectation of the liar who's been caught in the lie, who comes up with another lie to reinforce his lie, and who just completely dedicates to his lie, even though everything in reality is against it, and just starts looking for people around him who will believe what is obviously a fabrication, and then when he finds one, just, like, latches on to that. I mean, this just mentality of the liar and American culture and stuff is so prevalent that I see this and it's like I can relate this to a million other things.
It's most frustrating, one of the most frustrating things when you hear about these instances of people very obviously betraying not only their community and the victims and just, well, no, it doesn't even have to be a victimized situation, but any person who spins this web of falsehoods and betrays the people, the trust and the expectation of society and the people around them and themselves as well. Because I think I've been listening to some amount of philosophical stuff recently, and one of the messages that I really like and I'm trying to remember and stick to is that lying about a thing isn't just you deceiving other people, it's also you damaging part of yourself. And if you become this kind of person where the things that you do and the things that you say become separated and aren't consistent with one another, then you just fall apart in the long run. And like, who the hell even are you? You know. And the more you can do to tell the truth and to be consistent with what you do and what you say, the better person you'll be. And these instances where you meet or hear about these types of people who have clearly let that happen to such an extent that they've done something awful and atrocious. And not only will they not admit it, they'll spin a story to justify it and then go on the offensive with their justification as if somehow the strength of belief and the strength of conviction that they exhibit about the lie is a good tactic to ensure that the initial assumptions of the lie are valid. You know, a way to protect yourself by
Yeah,
rather
you
than
end
being
up
on the defensive,
watching someone
go on the
like
attack.
finding a way to believe their own bullshit. That's what I see in George Zimmerman is finding a way to believe that I didn't do the wrong thing when clearly you did, and if you just fucking acknowledge it, you could like move past it. But let's see the details. Let's see. I'm just looking at the article now, and I wanted to read a little section here. Uh, Zimmerman claimed he was attacked by Martin and defended himself. Police and prosecutors described an unjustified shooting of a teenager in a hoodie with Skittles and a drink. A jury acquitted Zimmerman of all charges in 2013. However, the lawsuit presses the Zimmerman version of events with allegations of efforts by the Martin family to produce a false narrative through dishonest accounts from witnesses. The suit also names prosecutors in the Zimmerman case alleging false prosecution, as well as book publisher HarperCollins over the October release of Crump's, whoever Crump is, Open Season Legalized Genocide of Colored People. So basically, Zimmerman is... It's never been over for Zimmerman because he's still alive. And he killed this kid, and he's never like acknowledged that he was going John Rambo, that he was imagining himself, because that's really what it looks like to me, is a man who's imagining himself in his favorite action movie. And he wanted to be the hero. He put himself on the neighborhood watch, armed himself to the teeth, and then when he was told by 911, do not engage, please wait for police, he decided to chase, follow, and instigate. This is a man who wanted to experience being the hero of his neighborhood and, coming back with, I caught the thief, I stopped the evil in the night kind of thing, and he made it happen. He made it happen, except for it turned out that it was just a kid, 17-year-old kid coming home with Skittles and a soda on his phone, talking to his girlfriend, who then later was a, witness to say what, was going on the other end of the phone as she was listening. And I just get the impression here that it's never ended for Zimmerman because he's never acknowledged that what he did was fucked up. And so there are still people out there talking about that it was fucked up. and because there was never really justice for the family who lost their member because there was an acquittal in this situation and no punishment, people keep talking about it, so he's sick of people talking about it, and so he's just going to sue the family of the person he killed, along with anybody else who keeps talking about it. But
Well,
being
it's much harder
acquitted
to
does not mean the facts are not
change
the facts.
after you've got yourself into a lie that deep and that serious, of which there are very few lies that are more deep and more serious in the world than, hey, you murdered this guy. No, I didn't. You know, once you're that deep, it's much easier to adjust your worldview and believe what bullshit you've sprouted than it is to go back and accept your wrongdoing and come to terms with it and to admit it to people.
And I do apologize for making this dark and taking the fun little news segment in that direction, but this is a huge thing, and it was like posted like 2 hours ago, 5 hours ago now, like, and it's just, but it's a huge, like, this case. I know so much of the ins and outs of this situation and this case, and, you know, lived through the prosecution of, you know, it's definitely not an O.J. Simpson level trial, but it was that era's O.J. Simpson level trial of, you know, we've got this guy who killed this kid in the dark of night, and he had no justification. He was told not to do it, and it comes out, the jury acquits him and says, you know, if you did anything wrong, it's not worth anything. It's not worth any punishment. Yeah, there's a dead kid now because you decided to be, you know, dirty Harry, for an evening, but, you know, you can just go home. And really, it wasn't even about Zimmerman, and it wasn't even about the jury. Like, the worst part of it was just that public discourse throughout this trial, because there was so much racism and so much, like, people making these huge leaps of assumption in favor of the guy who shot the black kid who's dead and can't tell us anything because the guy killed him, because the guy who's telling you the story that would have been, you know, potentially rebutted by the story of he's dead now because that guy killed him, and people making these huge leaps of like, well, maybe this and maybe that, and trying to like create a version of the story that they could imagine would exonerate George Zimmerman. And seeing that, it's like, that is the worst racism. You know, that is the deeper problem in society, is how far you're going to go in order to try and create a scenario where someone who's done something wrong maybe didn't do anything wrong, and in spite of all of the evidence, because you want to have an assumption, and then the news reports that, oh, and it turns out Trayvon Martin had smoked pot once or something. It's like, oh, well, there you go. It was, you know, he's a druggie. This is druggy, you know, Zimmerman he was probably high on drugs that night, you know, and just the assumptions that were coming out that do fly at the, you know, slightest turning of any of these kind of events, from people that just show you how deeply ingrained their, you know, their racist assumptions are. They don't think it's racism. They don't see themselves making the assumptions, and you're just standing there. But that's not the evidence. That's not what actually happened. You're saying maybe this, maybe that, if the other, and there's no evidence to that. Sometimes there's not even anybody claiming that. The worst part of it is not really, you know, the people involved. It's the people around it and what they come up with in order to justify the beliefs that they want to hold, regardless of reality.
A somber note to think about, but maybe now we go to a break and we come back a little bit more invigorated and change the topic, and perhaps
And we
can
can do some fart jokes and stuff.
perhaps we'll get
Zexagon.
around to discussing
It's
today's topic.
Hexagon. Have you guys discussed about Kappa and whatnot yet? We haven't. We're going to get to it after the live stream break, which we're about to take. Again, I do apologize for that, but George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin is a huge event in my life, and to see this news just randomly pop up, it's like, holy crap, I got to talk about that. Lynn was taken. Good evening. I'd like to ask if you would have any do's and don'ts for rookie streamers. Maybe we could talk about that when we come back from the live stream break, which will be 7 minutes. Please stay with us. I'm just going to play a little bit of music in the background. How do you feel about Menage a Quad's Lose the Box? We'll be back in 7 minutes with more Harv and Pawn. Don't go anywhere. Us not out.
It's not pops, it just stop like a blood clot. Cause we're here to blow up like we came from a rock. Electronica, embezzled by hip-hop, here to kick ass until the heart stops. Hipsters put on their cool shades, and thrifters keep the money they've been paid. And drifters have nothing safe but mind lifters don't give a damn what they say.
Wait, undeceivable, shit's unbelievable. You never ever guessed you'd hear this mix, it's inconceivable. Ouch, too hot, baby, back out of the kitchen. This is glitchy love at one of us, so daddy put your bitch. I'm a poisonous affliction with a fireball addiction. Man, it burns like hell and tastes like heaven. You say bold itching. Now I got you campers itching. This is music for your children. If you never heard the cue before, you don't know what you're missing. Hey!
Fresh fire. Cool.
Hello, I am the Ronan Pawn, and you are the Harvey, and welcome back to the Harv and Pawn Show. There, I just did it. We're in.
It's almost like it's the
transition.
start of the stream again, except you didn't let me talk for some reason.
Let me tell you more about George Zimmerman. That son of a...
Today's topic, change the title.
George Zimmerman.
No, moving swiftly on from that rather sad and depressing topic, let's discuss Twitch versus Patreon.
Who's gonna win? It's not YouTube. It's not YouTube.
Nope, definitely not. Not chance. Why not, Pawn?
Why not? Well, the topic of the day is YouTube versus Twitch versus Patreon as regards like how creators monetize their content and, getting paid for doing things so you can afford lovely libations during your live streams. The very short answer to, why does YouTube not win is that YouTube... Okay, so I recently had a bit of a bump to my own channel, my own YouTube channel and Twitch channel and things from, a semi-viral video about controversy that we're not going to get into because I'll just go off about Trayvon Martin again. But in the wake of that, and knowing that we were going to be talking about this week, I looked at, how much money I make per 1,000 views on YouTube. And I've done this before. I've actually done a video about this topic when I was basically just about to take the jump, the plunge from, what, YouTube's a thing, but I'm going to focus on Twitch. And what I found this time is that presently, it would be fair to say that I make on YouTube about $1.30-some, maybe $1.35, loose estimate of figures, but $1.35 per 1,000 views. So if I can get 1,000 people to watch my video, I make $1.35. Is that a viable mechanic by which you can produce content on YouTube without being already a major superstar and pay the bills? No. So there we go. All right, let's roll the credits. I think we've... What's your experience with YouTube and, because the thing is, if you have built, a big platform, if you have gotten an audience to show up for your regular videos and stuff like that, then it can be viable. But the process of going from I'm nobody to I'm creating content, I'm found, and now I'm making money on YouTube is such an uphill battle. What's been your experience? Because you were a much more successful YouTuber than I ever was. Got a friggin' plaque.
See
100,000.
See episode 5, was it? We did one episode about that. Success on YouTube and whatnot. And how success is not about these things that you're saying I'm successful for, but okay, Paul, it's fine.
You were a much more economically viable YouTuber than I ever was.
Yeah. Well, from my experience, it all just happened way too quickly for me to turn it into something sustainable. I think I had the opportunity, but I was too young and naive and busy and distracted. Not busy. Definitely not busy, but, I didn't have the wherewithal that I later gained as a result of realizing that in hindsight I'd been too naive and I was lacking in the wherewithal that I gained as a later result of, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you have to have a learning process too in just the industry of entertainment. You want things to be a certain way. You want to do things that you want to do with it. You learn swiftly how many people are trying to take advantage of you and how many people want things from you that maybe you don't want to give. And it's a hard business. It's a difficult business.
You say you learn swiftly how people are trying to take advantage of you. The thing that I did not learn swiftly, which is one of the ways that I could have increased how much money I made over the period of success, let's call it because it's easy to say, of YouTube for me, was that networks were pointless bullshit that didn't make me any money. They just sucked away for at least 1 year, I think a year and a half. They sucked away 30% of my minimal income, and then sucked away later. I got a better deal at 20%. Then I think I joined Curse and got it down to 10?
Yeah,
Curse
10.
was at.
It was
Yeah, just
network for
no
gamers
gain.
or something for gamers. Yeah.
I threw away that money out of a naive following of the crowd on the issue because it seemed like that was what big YouTubers did, so there must have been a good reason for it. And it seems that everyone was doing it because everyone looked at everyone else and went, "This is what big YouTubers must do." Okay, so
And
there was
that
no, yeah,
MCNs is its whole on top, but that's what we're talking about there is MCNs, multi-channel networks, which are basically organizations that pool YouTube channels, and then YouTube pays them directly, pays your MCN, and then they take off a percentage, and then they pay you. The benefit of that to smaller YouTubers is that you actually get paid at some point, because if you're not making over $100 a month or something, YouTube's AdSense won't pay you anything until you hit that threshold. So if you're willing to give up some portion of your income to be paid on a regular basis, you will get paid monthly through an MCN. But that is not how MCNs market themselves. They market themselves as being like a necessary, important part of protecting you from being attacked over your content and being taken down by strikes and stuff, which they can, function as. But most channels aren't being
they
attacked
don't.
with strikes, and their effectiveness at that is not really a thing. So what it ends
Questionable.
up being is, we give you like access to a list of music you can use, and you give us 30% of your hard-earned dollars. It's a
A list
bad
of
deal.
music which you could
MCNs are
find
horrible.
elsewhere equivalents for. So that was one relatively important because I lost a significant chunk of my income for no reason, but it was kind of understandable because everyone had fallen for this at the time.
Hmm.
The bigger thing that I remember thinking in hindsight was, funnily enough, very relevant to this topic actually, which is that, damn, I should have jumped on the Patreon bandwagon much sooner. If I had released that Sword Art Online VRGUI much sooner, and or at least not released it sooner, but if I'd included at the end of that video, hey, by the way, I have a Patreon and you can support me if you want to see more of this, I would have been killing it. I would have made so much more money. And money isn't everything, and money shouldn't have been what was motivating me, and so on and so forth. We've had all these discussions before. But money is nice, and I could have made a lot more money, and maybe I wouldn't have had to go into debt in order to go to university and so on, which is a topic we discussed last week. So my overwhelming kind of how good has YouTube been in terms of actual money in for people watching? Yeah, it's always been floating around that $1 per thousand people mark. I think it's changed, and the adpocalypse nuked things a little bit. But honestly, by the time the adpocalypse came along, which, if you don't know, was this period of time where the value of ad revenue went down as a natural result of the bursting of the bubble that was people making money through ad revenue, because that was always going to be a bubble in hindsight. Like, where's the generated value to the people hosting these ads, or the people watching these ads, or even the people doing the advertising, who arguably get the most out of all of this?
Yeah, and they
Where's
don't
the
either.
generated value in there?
Like the
Um,
advertising on YouTube is not particularly like, there's statistics on the value of different kinds of marketing and advertising and whatnot, and if you send out postcards, as an advertising campaign, you'll have like I think statistically a 2% response rate on average, and it's similar for a YouTube video or worse, like a YouTube
yeah,
advertisement. Even the advertisers don't get that much out of it. You've really got to be, they're doing it to keep their name out there, to keep their face, it's making you not forget that McDonald's is a thing, that Taco Bell has a new, thing that's we decided to make the wrapper for it out of chicken too. Go check that out. But it's like, you don't get people clicking on those ads. People don't usually like respond to those ads. And so, you got a lot of people putting out a lot of money on one end to buy advertising, and then really the only people who make any money off of this process significantly is YouTube. Because the people making the
yes,
content don't
they just
receive
have sufficiently overwhelming numbers of adverts in order to make up for their individual lack of value.
Mm.
But for me, the adpocalypse was already after I'd declined my YouTube activity. And so my overwhelming kind of takeaway from YouTube monetization, I made a fair amount of money. Like I made thousands of pounds, which as a kid, was all the money I could have ever earned from working a job times 100, in the same stretch of time. It was insane, and it afforded me a lot of uh, technology, mostly. Like I paid for gaming PCs and things that my parents would never have bought me, and that kind of stuff. So got into my VR stuff, which eventually took me into university and so on. And I have a degree of savings still left over from that. So I made money, but when I consider, as I predominantly have taken away from this experience, how much more money I would have made if I'd been smart about it and capitalized more on the merchandising and the Patreon and gone into Twitch, which we can now, I think, naturally segue onto. I would have made so much more money. So Patreon, I've mentioned a few times. Let's talk about Patreon, Born,
Mm.
because Patreon and Twitch we've already kind of heralded as being better than YouTube, but it's time to evaluate them against each other.
Mm.
So for Patreon, for instance, if you just want an example, patreon.com/Harv and Born is a place where you can
See how
pay
that's
a
done
fee
today.
monthly. Pay a fee monthly. And the word fee is interesting. Pay a fee monthly to your creators in return for something, which is entirely at the creator's discretion to decide. There's an expectation inherent in the system, which is a point you made, I think, a couple of weeks back now, which is different to how it works on Twitch, where you can subscribe as one of the few ways you can support your creators. You can subscribe and you very definitely get a few rewards in emotes and cheers and lack of adverts, right? And things like that. Is there much else to subscriptions?
I think that's you subscriptions. You get the emotes for the channel, and by the way, we have a Harv and Pawn emote going down the line right now that I just submitted. So it usually takes Twitch about a week to process that, but you get when you subscribe to a channel, you get whatever emotes, and then you use those emotes across any channel on Twitch. You know that you've supported the content creator, and I think you don't necessarily get the ads when they roll on the channels that you're subscribed to.
But that's it in terms of expectation goes. Like there's no expectation on the creator to go above and beyond and be like, well, hey, you Twitch subscribers are also going to be able to vote in our discussion polls that determine what we talk about next week. That's kind of just like added bonuses for Twitch subscriptions. Whereas
Mm.
it's not the main point, but whereas on Patreon, it's more of a transaction-y. Hey, I'll put your name at the end of my credits, and if enough of you subscribe, I'll turn off adverts completely, maybe, and yeah, I'll give you some dog tags and merchandise, that kind of early access and behind the scenes. And there's sort of a formula for Patreon that's grown over the years. And in terms of your ability to monetize, I think you could make a case that it's much more strongly related to how strong of a pitch you have for what your viewers will get out of supporting you, and fundamentally how in need of that support your cause or you are to be able to do the craft that you do. So it's a
Yeah.
decent way to monetize if you have a super engaged audience and you can convince them that they need to care about your financial situation,
These
and in
days,
return
I've
they'll get
come
something for it.
around to starting to think of Patreon more. So first off, I'll say that when I switched to Patreon, it was at the behest of my viewership. It was at the behest of certain people who were like, "You should be doing Patreon." I was like, "I don't really want to get into a whole nother thing, but you should be doing it." And so I finally did it, and then it was like, "Oh yeah, I should be doing Patreon." Jesus Christ. Um, but Patreon, like, here's okay. So because I want to talk about the deficits, I should talk about the benefits first. I will say this: as a YouTuber, before I became more of a Twitch live streamer, before I made that transition, as a YouTuber, I was able to pay my bills, buy the house that I'm in, and just everything was sustained once I actually quit working and was just a full-time YouTuber by Patreon. I had a lot of people who were giving me money on a monthly basis, $50 a month in the case of some people, but I had one in particular angel benefactor by the name of Kenneth One, who was giving me a ridiculous amount of money per month that basically all on its own would have allowed me to pay my bills. It was, I just don't want to say specific numbers kind of things, but I live very threadbare. I've always been poor, so, $500 a month, $600 a month pays my bills. And Kenneth One, not alone, because like I say, there's lots of people who are supporting me in huge, just giant dollar amounts that as a creator just make you feel like, why are you doing this? Like I can't possibly offer, something of this value to you, but they were doing it, and I had the money, I had the income, I could pay my bills, and I could carry on, and it was because of Patreon. Without Patreon, that wouldn't have happened. So Patreon, one, creates that opportunity for large monthly donations from benefactors who basically make you feel like you're an orphan in a Charles Dickens novel, that there's just someone out there whom you don't necessarily know has decided that you should have all of the money. And then at the end of the book, you find out who they are and that they were always related to you and stuff like that. But like that's their Patreon is a low fee, relatively low fee place to collect a revenue, to have a revenue stream of any kind. Patreon takes it ends up being about 10% gets lost. Patreon takes 5%. They say that about 5% gets lost to transactional fees and stuff like that. So 10% off the top, which by comparison with YouTube is 55% of everything that you make just goes to YouTube. And even by Twitch's standards on Twitch, a subscription that you pay $4.99, $5 for, what the person you're supporting gets is $2.40 on average for that $5 subscription. So they take half as well.
So slightly under half as well for you, yeah.
Yeah, you get a little bit, so it's kind of 55% again is what you end up with. And then, of course, even when it comes to bits on Twitch, the bits that you give are 100%. If you give 800 bits, that's $8 USD to the streamer. That said, what you pay for those 800 bits, is you've already sort of paid up front for the 30 or 40%, what Twitch is going to take. So actually, to be specific about Twitch, the person who you want to support gets more money when you cheer out of the money that you've given than they do when you subscribe. Just so that that's on the record. The benefits to subscription are very cool. The fact that it's a monthly recurring thing, even on the creator's side, it's a good deal because, you have an expectation that people will be back next month and there will be another $2.40, which is, having some consistency to your income is helpful. But with Patreon, I have come around to, Jesus, I take a long time to get around to my point, don't I, Harv?
No, you're making good points. It's establishing a framework for what's coming.
I have come around to with Patreon that Patreon is a monetization stream for creators that creates more work. You're already producing videos, you're already producing content, you're already streaming on Twitch, you're already setting up, vast graphical systems where it looks like two people who are on two different continents are in the same room and the room never existed in reality, and you've made it out of graphic design. And if you would, follow them, if you would subscribe to them on Patreon, then you get to see the making of this set. Graphical design that amounts to about 24 hours worth of work that I did. But, Patreon is more work on top of the work you're already doing as a creator. I'm making my videos, I'm churning out whatever I'm doing, and then in order to sustain Patreon, and it's not explicit, it's not that Patreon says you have to do this, but there is an expectation that as a Patreon supporter, I'll get something more. Patreon does encourage that with their idea of having different tiers of subscription support. You know, if you give $3 a month, then, you know, you just here's all the things that I usually do. But if you give $10 a month, well, then you're going to get access to this. And if $50 a month, then we'll have like a meetup once a month and we'll do something together as a community. And it encourages things that can be very like positive and get you thinking about, new ways to like, you know, have fun and enjoy the benefits of having a community of people who want to spend time with me, which is weird. But it also creates more labor on the end of the creator to support and sustain that expectation of what you will be getting on the other end. So, you know, it's good. And I certainly am, you know, I'm not going to say stop supporting me or Harv and I on Patreon, but it's a trade-off. Whereas, and I will stop talking shortly, Harv. Whereas Twitch, there is no trade-off. What happens here happens here. You subscribe because you're enjoying the content that we are making as we're making it. It's live, it's right there. The subscription comes in, the cheer comes in, a donation comes across via Streamlabs. That's it. It's like, here's the money for what you are doing right now. Thank you for that. And I want to play, and, you know, and everything happens right there, and it's actually adding content to the process. It's almost making the process easier of putting together a show because the people who are watching are participating with it. And so it all just happens right there. Whereas with Patreon, it's making content and then building a back-end community for Patreon where you're rewarding people for supporting you in a more direct way. And it's more. It's more.
So there's a couple of interesting points I want to make. I want to revisit this expectation because I think the most unique thing we have to say, arguably, about this is probably on the expectation we feel from Patreon. Because I'm sure I've not heard many people say this before, and as a result, I'm sure it's something viewers probably haven't, an idea they haven't been exposed to as much. But before we come back to that and explore it a little bit deeper, we were evaluating differences, and hey, thank you very much to Giorno, who just donated $5.
And
We didn't even
says,
mention direct donations as a thing. Do you group in them with... Sorry, what does he mention?
you, Ronan Pawn, have a donation. This is Giorno. Thank you, Giorno.
Oh. If you want to direct directly to Ronan Pawn, you should probably do that via Ronan Pawn's
No. We gotta pay
own
Houston
social
somehow.
medias. Because
Right,
I'm going to take
Houston?
50% of that and you can't stop me.
Maybe.
You could stop me. You could specify specifically if you wanted it to get spawned. We could figure that out. But yeah,
I would
if
not
it was a
allow it.
mistake. Oh, and Dramasian says 500 bits. Here's the money right here, right now, and I got an emote thanks to that. Thank you very much, Dramasian.
And Random Aim was saying earlier that right there is why I prefer to stick to cheers. I pay the tax to Twitch when I buy the cheers, and then I know exactly how much I'm giving. And it's not a matter of backdoor, who gets a percentage of what and that kind of stuff. You know what you're doing while you're doing it. The streamer knows what you're doing while you're doing it. And it's just the clearest, straightest, forwardest, monetization stream that exists in the business today. And we all got, thank you so much. And Dramasian with another 1,000 bits, more emotes for everybody. Hang on, I'm not done thanking you in chat for the emotes that we just got. I got haha reindeer and haha ginger cat.
Haha nyan deer, it's called. It's a nyan cat with a reindeer antlers.
Dramasian, thank you
very
so much for the
Jesus.
$15 worth of, that's the thing, is part of this. Jesus, they just keep rolling in, but part of this is there is an obfuscation that almost seems intentional of what you give and how much the money's worth and that kind of stuff. And, it's funner. I've seen other streamers who call bits a different thing just to sort of disambiguate like the money from the bit and the like as though they don't want you to understand that they're making money off of this or something. And I want all entertainers to be completely open about this stuff, because it's ridiculous that there is a culture, that we have a culture where it's like the people who do the work of creating the entertainment on a regular basis that we all enjoy are supposed to not be in it for the money. And the thing is, like, yeah, you're not in it for the money, just like Harv, you're not in it for the money having chosen to work in the industry that you work in, having gone to university for the industry that you went to. You were interested in doing what you're doing now, and it's a way of paying the bills because that work needs to be done and it has value on the market. So it's not all about, I will be a YouTuber because I want money in my pockets. But, it's about that, like, I want to do this because this is what I want to do in the first place. I'm already passionate about it. I also need to pay my bills, just like everybody else everywhere. And there's this weird fucking culture out there that's like, creators shouldn't be about money and they shouldn't talk about money and, But no, that's exactly what everyone does in all of their jobs and lives. You think that somebody, like, beat their head against the wall of YouTube and Twitch and Patreon and trying to build a community because they had no passion for it. They just wanted to make money. There are way easier ways to make money. That said, there are some channels out there that are just pure clickbait that's exactly what they're doing. But for the most part, Bavilia donated $5 and said, "Here's one for Harv too," which means that we've balanced it out, Harvey. But have I?
Yes. No, thank you very much, Bavilia, for that. With everything you were talking about, I need to recommend you this book.
Oh, I thought I had
it's
just
called...
been talking so long you were just going to read just to pass the time.
It's called Woes Ryo Crow. Woes Ryo Crow.
Okay. Is it German? What is that?
No, it's called Show Your Work. My webcam is just flipped horizontally.
By whom?
It's
Arthur
called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon.
Austin.
And it's a great little book. It's only, I don't know how many, 50 pages, especially if you actually printed the font in a smaller size. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. And it's a book all about how creative people and people who work in creative crafts shouldn't be concerned about this feeling of selling out and promoting themselves and all that kind of stuff, right? So one of the ones in here particularly, just the theme of the whole book is that it goes into how do you monetize without succumbing to this feeling of selling out, and what processes view your work as a process that you go through with its output at the end, sure, but also lots of value that's people are interested in through along the journey, and share bits of that as you go along doing what you would normally do anyway, and just share those behind the scenes in order to create extra things for people, whether to engage people more or whether to potentially generate more monetization, more revenue like that. So I really think you should read this because it's a really short read. I think it's only a few dollars on Amazon or something. You can probably get it even cheaper if you get the digital version of the book rather than the print nowadays. But yeah, it's short read. It's really good. It's designed for people like us. The author also wrote a book called "Steal Like an Artist." Austin Kleon's "Steal Like an Artist," which just instantly evokes these ideas that I'm sure we've both thought of a lot to do with creativity and inspiration, and just absorb everything you can from everywhere. So
Good
great little
artists
book and very
borrow,
relevant.
great artists steal.
Yes.
And I've thought about that concept of, or that just statement a lot, and there's huge truths in that, because it really comes down to like the mindset of the artist, and it's whether or not you're willing to allow yourself to just like take something and make it yours, as opposed to borrowing someone else's style for something. If you're inspired by something, you want to like work off of it. It's all about mindset at that point, whether or not you're homaging or you just like take it and own it, and in the process of stealing it and making it yours, it becomes yours. It becomes your own thing. It was inspired by this, that, and the other thing. And so, yeah, you get good art out of people who borrow art that's already good, but you get great art out of people who just fucking grab something they like and make it their own, which is the process of stealing. I am taking what is yours and making it mine, and my hand gets larger because of forced perspective.
I'm back, I think.
You glitched for just a second on my end. You didn't hear everything I said. That's fine. I talk a lot.
My internet, this is the second time actually it's dropped out. You didn't notice the first time, I think.
I actually saw the little glitch when I came back, like a little video glitch, but I just assumed it was a video glitch.
It was a while ago. So I don't know what you said, but yes. So there was that book I recommended you. And I wanted to go deeper into this expectation we get from Patreon. But I think it's worthwhile, after we've specifically given a number to YouTube, about $1 per 1,000 views, to compare that to Twitch versus Patreon. And Harv and Porn is a good example for us to use because you pulled together the numbers recently. I don't suppose you mind sharing the numbers?
I don't. No.
I don't mind either. So far, this is episode indexed 13. So this is the 15th episode of Harv and Porn. We've not massively pushed Patreon, but it's something that we've mentioned, I think, a reasonable amount each episode. And of course, we get people subscribing on Twitch. And so far total, we've made about $270 US. And we quickly kind of thought that through. Yeah, thank you to all of you who have donated or subscribed or cheered or whatever to make that happen. If you put together the total numbers on how many people have seen the show, kind of how many views we've got, it comes out at around 8,000 total across YouTube. And that's most of that is from YouTube VODs and things, which is interesting because then you wonder, oh, but how many of those YouTube views get turned into Patreon and Twitch? But you assume that people find it via YouTube and come on because that's the main new audience source that we have. So $270-ish, about 8,000 unique views of the show. And that works out to be about 20 times more money per view than YouTube would otherwise give. I think it was around 20 times. It felt like it should be even more than that, but 20 times is a
Yeah,
pretty
I just
big
did
deal
the math
still.
on what that would be if I'm right in $1.35 per 1,000 views. So if we've got 8,000 views, then that's 10,800 pennies. Or rather, well, it's basically $10.80, right? For 8,000 views, $10.80. We would have made a tenner off of YouTube in advertising revenues if all of that was monetized and so forth and so on. And yeah, $10 on YouTube versus 270 because of the platforms of Twitch and Patreon and enabling direct support that doesn't rely on whether we could sell an advertisement to McDonald's, who's got the new chicken sandwich. They're entering the chicken sandwich wars with their fried baked chicken, but the chicken.
We should also talk about sponsorships, although that's not something we've engaged in too much, either of us. But before we do that, $270 total for Harv and Porn, split between what was made from Twitch and what was made from Patreon. From Patreon, that was about you're gonna make me calculate it. You didn't give me the number here. From Twitch, it was 150 of those $270. So 120-ish from Patreon so far. So pretty equal. We've not really pushed one over the other as far as... Would you agree? Do you think we've pushed one more than the other in terms of our marketing?
I don't know. I feel like we've said more about Patreon, just being on Twitch. It just kind of, takes care of itself. Thank you, Balthazar, for the $5 donated. But yeah, even if we are even, here's a thing to bear in mind. If we are even in how much we've like pushed one or the other or mentioned one or the other, then Twitch wins. If we're not even, and we have been, saying more about Patreon because Twitch kind of takes care of itself because here we are and the systems are right there, then Twitch wins also. In terms of having the straightforward, clear, like this for this as this is going on, no extra work added, and more revenue. More revenue has come in through Twitch than Patreon.
So essentially, from our experience so far, at least, Twitch seems to be the kind of optimal thing, but Patreon is still wildly significant in terms of the ratio there. So
yeah,
some sort of
absolutely.
ratio of Twitch and Patreon is 20 times more effective than YouTube monetizing adverts would be.
Yeah.
We've not really thought at all about YouTube memberships and super chats and things you can get on YouTube there. We've not explored that yet. There's potential there if we were thinking purely about squeezing as much revenue out of this as we possibly could. We currently have 9 live viewers on Twitch, as opposed to hey. Okay, so 2 live now on my channel. Wow. And 1 live now on Harv and Porn. Okay. I was expecting a bit more
And with
than this.
this relatively tiny viewership for the live shows, we have, this level of support. And that's the thing, is like all these systems have to combine. Before I go any further, Balthazar, donating $5, says, "Are you guys ready for a Brazilian YouTuber to splice a run with cheat engine enabled, make a shady VHS video, swapping arcade boards to confirm its authenticity, submitting it to AGDQ, and getting to run that same game at the event?" We are absolutely ready for that. In my experience directly, that is a huge boost to exposure. That would be great. If somebody wants to fake a Harv and Pawn speed run of the show, or however that would work, whatever you want to do. If we just started saying like really inappropriate things, then, people would start covering, "Oh, YouTubers said this on that thing," Start shouting. All right, I won't do it. But I do want to say, like, all these systems have to kind of come together. So YouTube, what they provide is the place to store your VODs, first off, to have these shows that otherwise are just live, and they're on Twitch, but Twitch doesn't have such a large population of people who are looking for recorded content or pre-recorded or VODs and stuff. I watch VODs a lot. I, go and watch speedrunners VODs and stuff like that, but it's not what they focus on. They're more about the live content. And in fact, Twitch's servers for allowing you to watch the VODs are shit depending on which region you happen to be in. I have had issues where I've had to connect with a VPN through London in order to be able to watch VODs without them like buffering and stuttering every 10 to 15 seconds. But I've never had any problems streaming to Twitch. I've never had any problems watching a live Twitch stream. So they focus primarily on live stuff. They've decided clearly, since they can't, manage to fund the friggin' servers for VODs, not to care that much about the VODs. So you use YouTube for, hosting of your content in perpetuity, and also for additional exposure. So YouTube is in there. It's just YouTube isn't really like something that I have focused on in my personal thing, since I made the change in my personal channels, in my speedrunning and that kind of stuff, as a revenue stream. It was nice when I had the boost to exposure that brought people to my Twitch channel and brought people to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, since we are talking money and just giving out money, like the actual figures, I'll say YouTube, because I got that big boost of exposure and I released my own video about how I caught Connor Ace cheating, that video, made me $300 and some on YouTube. Meanwhile, on Twitch and Patreon, you put Twitch and Patreon together, and I'm going to put this number out there, and it's going to blow your mind like it blew my mind, probably. I made $3,000 in that month. Which is the only month that I've been paid for. I just got paid for that month now that happened.
Oh,
$3,000
ka-ching.
on Twitch and Patreon, and that sudden boost of people coming around who came around mindfully to support, because part of the exposure of that was that I was, in a desperate situation. I'm coming into winter here. The utility bills are going up. I got winter taxes to pay on my house, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And that injection of capital, now I know that I can get through winter. But literally in the, percentage sense, YouTube was 10% of that revenue for that month via ad revenues. So Twitch and Patreon versus YouTube can't even compare. It is almost worth it. It might just be worth it to demonetize everything that you do on YouTube. Takes it out of the realm of having to come under AdSense, people claiming your videos. I mean, they can still claim them, but if you just let them have the money, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. The whole COPPA thing with the children's, if you're making kids content, but we don't think it's kids content enough, that kind of a deal. Don't have to worry about that anymore because you're not monetizing it. All these things come off the table. You lose potentially a little bit of revenue, but you also give to your viewership the freedom of not having to necessarily see ads on your videos. Although that said, YouTube might still run ads because, they still have to pay for the platform. I don't know how they decide when to run an ad and when not to run an ad. So, it's the kind of thing where
To
YouTube
some degree,
is an extra, but Twitch and Patreon are how you're going to pay your bills.
We have also kind of put our money where our mouth is with that sentiment, that it might be worth just not monetizing with YouTube ads at all, because we don't for Harv and Porn. All the Harv and Porn content that's gone up on my channel, and obviously the Harv and Porn content on its own channel, it doesn't have any adverts. Like you just said, YouTube might run an advert on it themselves. I don't know how they do that either. But at least on my end, I've not monetized any of it. And to some degree, I think that was, to be honest, most of that initially was probably because we were wondering, how do we go about splitting the money for this kind of thing? Are we
Yeah.
going to keep track of each video's revenue generation and subtract that out of my AdSense account and put it into the group one? Let's just not even think about it, because the amount of money we're going to make from AdSense is going to be about $10 over 15 episodes. So, and what it allows us to do, although we haven't really even, I don't think we've even once said this, but theoretically it allows us to go, hey, we don't run ads on any of our content on YouTube. So if you would like to support the channel, please do so by pledging $1 every month at Patreon and make more money that way. If you can get even, what is it? What if it's $1 per 1,000 people $1 per 1,000 views, which is $1 per 1,000 people per $1 per month if you publish one video per month, and we put up 4 a month, so that's $4 per 1,000 people. If we could even turn 4 of those 1,000 people into $1 monthly patrons, we would have broke even. So you need a 0.4% conversion rate through the strategy for us doing a weekly show, through the strategy of, hey, please support us on Patreon with $1 a month instead of watching adverts. You only need a 0.4% conversion rate for that to be break even.
The equivalent exchange of Twitch to YouTube then turns out that one person clicking the subscribe button, the $2.40 that you receive from that is equal to around 2,000 views on YouTube. So, as an individual who wants to support a creator, you could either subscribe on Twitch, or you could set up a 2,000 large bot network with spyware that you've distributed across, and then once a month just hit the creator with every one of those bots in order to...
And probably get their channel taken down while YouTube investigates the suspicious activity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching today's episode. That's about all the time we have. However, the show today is going to extend on by at least another 15 minutes because
I forgot
we
entirely.
have a very special announcement to make. This has been very long overdue, and for that, I can only apologize. It's been a metaphorical weight on my shoulders that I'm finally offloading and saying, here, just get this thing off of me already. But The Adventures of Daryl, the tabletop roleplay cooperative storytelling series that premiered on Harv and Porn right in the very first 4 episodes, has finally got a 5th installment. So if you haven't caught up with the Harv and Porn Adventures of Daryl series and haven't watched the previous episodes, go to YouTube, go find those, twitch.tv, harv.and.ronanporn.com or twitch.tv/agency gaming, and go watch those first. And if you have seen them and you remember the story so far, then please enjoy episode 5 of The Adventures of Daryl. It's the dead of night, and a few minutes have passed. There's no one obviously standing outside the stables, but you can hear the horses kind of, or whatever it is. There's 3 of them in a line.
So Dave, I'm your prisoner, right?
Yeah, you are my prisoner, yeah, that's right.
I mean, we're mates, we're blokes, it's fine. I'm not gonna run on you, but, you know, if somebody were to see, probably be better if I was sort of, you know, maybe bound by the hands in some way.
Oh yeah, that's true. Kind of looks around. The stables have some supplies. There's a short length of rope that's being used just to keep the stable doors shut so the horses can't get out. And so he starts untying that. He's like, "All right, I've got the rope. Are you sure you want to be bound straight away, though? Do you want to wait until we get to the king? Might be a bit uncomfortable."
Just the hands and in front, and yeah, leave it a bit loose, right? Just for the image of it, right?
Yeah, he lazily ties them around you. Not so much of a knot as a kind of twisting of rope that you could easily pull your hands out of.
Yeah, that'll do, Dave.
And the stable doors swing open, and the 2 horses that were in that particular stable kind of curiously poke their heads out. They've been well trained. They don't bolt for the door immediately. Dave has never ridden a horse before in his life.
Oh shit.
I don't think you've ever ridden a horse before in your life.
Oh yeah, shit farmer, witch kind of a thing.
But the horses make a bit of a racket as you attempt to bring them under control. And around the corner comes running a small boy. Alright, what's going on out here then?
Dave, just the kid.
The king wants to see him, says Dave, taking the initiative. My mate Daryl, my prisoner, Daryl here, got to get him to the king, so we're using the horses. Ah, well, are you allowed to do that? Well, I should think so, it's the king, isn't it? Ah, okay. As the 2 of them are kind of bickering and debating about this, you feel a crackle of energy, and it surges from Dave. It's been about 5 minutes since you imbued him, and it returns back into you in 8/10. Rush out of his arm, rush back into yours, and embers go flying everywhere. There's a pile of dry hay nearby, and some of the embers go on it, and they smoke briefly, and then go out. However, the stable boy is shit scared, and he runs away screaming, as you 2 just explode into a fury of fire, and the horses bolt, nearly running him straight over. You and Dave are clinging for dear life as the horses charge straight out the town. He is not happy, to say the least, and he's also extremely confused. So the horse is going wherever it wants.
I don't know how to deal with a horse either. I'm a shit farmer. Just say something sweet to it, Dave. No, ask it to go to the left.
The demon speaks in your head. You know. Wait, that wasn't his voice, was it? What was his voice? You know.
Yeah.
Humans and animals aren't so different.
Oh.
Oh, well, I rub the horse's thighs suggestively.
Sensually.
And I'm going to guess that a lower primitive creature will do this for just 1/10 of my power.
So you get ready 1/10, and what is the story that the horse will try to follow?
Like, eat grass.
Not something like go where I direct you or do what I say. But
I mean,
eat
listen,
grass.
I'm freaking out here. I never ridden a
That's
horse
true.
before.
This is good. This is good
thing, like,
roleplay.
charged across the countryside. I got Dave here. Clearly, he's not under my control anymore. Just fucking stop the horse.
Daryl
We need to get
Lumen,
this thing
spreader.
back on the wheel.
Daryl Lumen spreader centrally rubs the thigh of the horse and thinks about the one true love in his life: grass. Eat grass, baby, he whispers. And the horse immediately slows to a canter and then a trot, and whatever horse terminology is for going slower than that, and starts nibbling on the grass that happens to be growing on the side of the town. And the town is a little ways behind you right now, because you were galloping for a little while. There's plenty of grass and shrubbery out here. Suddenly, Dave's horse, the one with the brown and the white patch, it didn't get the message, and so it keeps bolting.
Oh,
Dave
shit.
goes flying off into the undergrowth, screaming as he goes, and lights start appearing in the town behind you.
Sorry, mate.
He doesn't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I kind of want to keep Dave on a short leash. I feel like he's useful to me.
You know, my only problem is this horse here, and I got him to stop and just eat some grass and whatnot, but I need to know how to ride him, or rather I need him to just sort of ride under me. So, yeah.
Well,
know,
you've still got
you're-
9/10 remaining. You've not tried
Yeah.
to double imbue anyone yet, but who knows?
Right. I'm gonna give it a try with another 10th, and I just want to give him sort of the image of catching up with Dave.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, that's good that you can mentally project the kind of image. And in fact, for a horse, I suppose it's far more likely that he'd be able to understand the image of riding in a certain direction than the words.
I didn't go into like a thing. You know that bloke Dave, right?
Yeah, you know Dave, the one who works down prison. So the horse, it kind of drops its head up, and it looks in the direction that you wanted it to go, and it starts like trotting, half galloping in that direction, and then something seems to distract it, and it notices some grass, and then it starts nibbling on the grass, and then a few seconds later it's forwards, and starts moving forwards again, and it kind of alternates between the two.
Oh shit!
There's an
This is
internal
JavaScript
battle.
parallel
going on.
processing bullshit.
Yeah, two threads
Oh, it's trying to
executing
do both.
simultaneously. You know, the method for eat grass and the method for ride forward are being called alternating sequences. It's creating some buggy gameplay. In the distance, you hear Dave's voice. He's crying. He's weeping. Today's been a hectic day for Dave.
Yeah. For all of
but
us, really.
He does appear to no longer be screaming, which is a good sign. So, what would you like to do? It's been a couple of minutes now since the horse was first imbued.
Okay. Well, I wanna. If I'm rolling up on Dave here, I wanna go like the sensible route. I mean, he's seen a lot. He's been back and forth on things. His head is full of nonsense. He doesn't know what's going on here. I just wanna, I wanna do this without imbuing him. I wanna, Dave. Hey, how's it going?
You have to call quite loudly as he makes his way back towards the underbrush, and the lights which came on in the town behind you start moving a little bit as you glance over your shoulder to check, and you can see some torches that have been lit and are twinkling as if they may be moving and coming a bit closer. But luckily, with your frenzied charge out of the town, you're quite a ways away, and those horses can gallop like no man's business. So Dave manages to stumble out the undergrowth and come back to you.
Daryl. Wait, no, that's me. Dave. Dave. Listen, mate. I want to drop down in the brush, sort of next to him, but a couple of feet between us. But just sort of.
I mean,
next to him,
you have to get
sort
off
of
your horse
sit
to
down.
do that. But the horse is bugging out, so it's pretty easy to get off. The horse it kind of makes a bit of more progress forward, but not so far that you won't be able to catch up, so that's probably okay.
Dave. Listen, here's the thing. I didn't want to tell you this way. But you know what they were all saying back in town, right? About me being a witch and all. Apparently it's true.
What? He kind of squeaks.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a witch. I don't know, it's a new thing for me.
He doesn't say anything, he just looks at you in awe. Or is it terror? You can't quite tell. One of the two.
Listen, mate, I've made kind of a mess of things. People want to kill me. King wants to see me. I'm still, like, playing on the idea that nobody believes that. But, okay, as a witch, I do have certain powers, right? And, the thing is, I think I might have gotten you in too deep, right? Now you helped me escape, leave the town, right? We just stole these horses. You probably don't remember. We just stole these horses from the mayor.
We stole horses? I was wondering why I had a horse. You know what, Darrell? I'm not even sure. I don't even know if I'm dreaming. I don't know what's going on. I've got vague memories of Jim. No, that did happen. I'm fairly sure Jim did say that I was with Miranda. I don't even know who Miranda is still.
Listen, here's how I see things, right? I'm a wanted man. You, tomorrow morning, could be, or maybe not, right? That's what I'm thinking. Because they don't know what to think, right? They're not sure.
I don't know what to think, he just says to himself.
It's fair enough. But, you know, here's the thing. I do have witch-like powers, right? Control the movements of the moon and the sun and all that sort of thing. It's new to me, but I'm figuring it out, right? So, what I'm thinking is, I'm pretty sure that I can make this work out for both of us. Now, the king does want to see me, right?
He nods his head at that. He's fairly sure someone said something about the king wanting to see you, and it might have been him.
And listen, maybe it's just to execute me, yeah? But I am amenable to those circumstances, right? I've done wrong, and I'm willing to pay the price, but most importantly, I still have got to get to the king, yeah? And if you, Dave, are the man who delivers me to the king, right? That's huge, yeah? That's like promotion time. That's like maybe you're the mayor. Maybe these are your horses, right? We didn't steal anything because you're the man, Dave. You're the man who delivered the witch to the king, and then maybe they chop my head off or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. I'm saying,
I'm the man.
come, yeah.
I'm the man. I'm the man. Yeah, you know what, Daryl? Witch? You? Yeah, I'll deliver you to the king. And his chest puffs out, his shoulders rise. Clearly, your words have taken hold. All right, you gotta. But you know, I don't really like all this witchy business that's going on.
Dave, I promise no more witchy business. Go ahead, tie me up. It's fine.
He does exactly that. And in the distance, you begin to make out the shape of figures, and they say, "He's there!" You can hear them. "He's there! It's the witch! There's someone with him!" Gasps from the crowd. "He's kidnapped someone!" The witch. You and Dave presumably clamber back onto the brown white horse together, because your horse is off in the undergrowth eating grass and bumbling into trees. Although, as you ride past, you
in
feel
circles, he keeps coming back to Dave and then walking off and eating grass. Coming back to Dave.
It's been doing that the entire time you've been giving a motivational speech. The horse has just been circling him. But as you get onto the brown white one, you feel a surge of energy stream across from the horse to you, and it feels like you've recovered 1/10. And so now the horse, no longer as confused, seems intent on just following Dave. And so as you two kick off on your horse and head wherever you think the palace is, presumably in the direction away from the mob, the horse is content to follow after you.
Dave, maybe we just need to get off the path and let this sort of mob behind us sort of lose us. Wait for daybreak.
He agrees that that's a sensible idea. Considering your words in particular about him maybe also being wanted in the morning, have clearly been brewing in his mind. The two of you make your way. You weren't really following much of a path anyway, but you can progress further into the undergrowth. And then if you like, you can kind of camp there and lose the mob.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy for you to do so. In the landscape surrounding Aladel, there's a rather large kind of, not quite a forest, but a very thick woodland, and there's plenty of kind of nooks and crannies and patches of trees, and with the amount of people they were able to rouse during the middle of the night to go hunt a witch in the dark, it seems like the town is pretty content to just go back inside. So it's not long before you see the torches retreat, and everyone's like, well, you know, he's a witch. It's probably disappeared in a puff of smoke or something.
Turned into a bat and flew
away. You know, eaten the corpse of whoever it was that you stole from the village, whatever it is that witches do. And you feel that you are relatively safe.
And we're back. There it was, the final installment of Daryl when he strays.
You're never gonna let that go.
Daryl of he strays.
The final installment. I think at some point we need to finish off the story, but I'm not drawing many more slides for Daryl. I'm not gonna obligate myself into doing that, because this episode should have come out months ago, and it's just taken me so long to work up the motivation to overcome the feeling of I don't you know. So I think what we do is at some point we maybe have a special episode where we do the thing, you know, finish the story, and maybe just do it on an episode and blast through it and spend the 2 hours doing that, and bring it to a close.
Or
and
we
then
could make
if viewers
the recording
want
or
to draw frames,
the process an exclusive Patreon and Twitch subscriber thing on a Discord call or something. If you want to be part of that, make sure and things on patreon.com/harvandpawn. Subscribe here on twitch.tv/harvandpawn. Visit the YouTube channel for the mods at harv.and.ronanpawn.com.
do it as well, because we are no longer going to be posting discussion cuts of the show to our individual YouTube channels. Thank you for the follow. I didn't see the name.
Me neither. I was just trying to spread out my green screen folds, because once the name came up, I could see that. But thank you for the follow.
Yes. So our YouTube channels have always, since the start, been viewed as platforms on which to advertise this show so that we can kickstart its community. And it's done that to some degree. You know, you guys are here, you guys are watching. We've got 60-something subscribers on the Harv and Pawn channel on YouTube. We've got X many subscribers here on Twitch. We've kind of done that kickstarting. And so now that we're pretty well established, we're not going to bother posting the whole discussion cuts of the show to our channels. We probably will still continue to post VODs. I think especially ones that we've put particular creative effort and flair into and are really proud of, that we'd both like to have those ones that we've particularly contributed to on our own channels, respectively. But yeah, other than that, it's all kind of its own voyage from here on. So if you're watching on YouTube on somewhere else right now other than harv.and.ronanpawn.com, which is the Harv and Pawn YouTube channel, then consider subscribing to Harv and Pawn. And even if you watch on Twitch every week, consider subscribing to be able to get the VODs that maybe you miss. And yeah, that's about it. Any other thoughts?
Who is it that you said is streaming right now again? Jenna Bain?
Right. Yeah, Jenna Bain, wife of the late great Total Biscuit, is currently streaming World of Warcraft. So we're going to do something we've not done before. We're going to raid her stream and send you guys all on over there. After, I know you're ready with the typing, but do that after we end the stream, because we have some credits to roll. So thank you very much to all of those of you who are supporting us on Patreon, supporting us by being a Twitch subscriber, who have cheered. Thank you again to Dramacian for the 1,500 bits today. And thank you to the rest of you who have subscribed and followed and cheered and so on. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you enjoyed today and continue enjoying Harv and Porn forever for 1,000 more years. It's never going to end. And with
We're
that,
going to be taking a break at the end of this year, but never mind that. And with that,
yeah, that aside, and with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Harv, Porn, Harv, Porn, Harv and Porn, and 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 Harv and Porn, Harv and Porn.